Join me in this Roll for Crit review as I give you a tasting of Distilled from Paverson Games. In this game, you'll be running a distillery, and it's up to you to find the best ingredients in order to make the liqueurs that everyone adores. Now, some of them will be ready to pour right off the bat, while others may need to take some time to age in order to get those right flavors. But will this age well on your shelf? Let's find out. The game in this video was provided to Roll for Crit by its creators or publishers. Only the game was provided for the making of this video. Distilled wants you to make the best alcoholic beverages in order to prove you've got the best distillery at the table. Each game is played over 7 rounds, with each round having multiple phases. The first phase involves the market phase. Right now you're seeing the market board that'll be in the center, but the rest of the game will more pertain to your own personal area. Here, during the market phase, you're going to take turns buying either from the basic market or from the more premium slots, being premium items to have better bottles or containers to make your drinks in, better ingredients, or upgrades for your distillery. You can also buy these cubes, which represent different recipes that you can unlock as you play. Now, the cost of each item is the red little tag in the bottom. If you choose to buy something, you'll pay the cost, take the item, and add it to your personal inventory, sliding over any cards that may be to the left, and then adding a new card into the slot. These, though, are basic cards. These will always be available. However, you can only buy 2 cards from the basic market per round. Once the market phase is finished, you'll discard all cards to the right, sliding over any cards that are remaining, as if something was just purchased, and add a new card for the next time you enter the market phase. Once each player is done buying and pass in the market phase, you'll move on to the distilled phase. Now, technically this phase is concurrent play with everyone taking their actions at the same time. However, I highly recommend for your first game, you take turns to get a feel of the phase. Now, what we're showing off here is the personal player area as well as the scoreboard area. Each player is going to get the same list of recipes for a game, as well as their own personal character with their own unique power, a unique signature recipe, and a unique ingredient. They also have 3 secret goals, which we'll talk a little bit more about when we talk about the end round phase. Now, during the distilled phase is when you're actually going to be concocting your beverages. Each beverage is going to require at least 1 water, 1 yeast, and 1 sugar. Sugar come in 3 different kinds. You saw them on the basic board, but it doesn't matter which sugar you put in there as long as you throw in 1, though keep in mind, based on the recipes you have unlocked with the recipe cubes you bought or the 2 basic ones you always have, you may want to throw in specific sugars. You can also throw in more than what you're targeting. So for example, the soju and whiskey both require at least 2 grain sugars, but we could choose to throw in 1 more, and that will become apparent very shortly. Once you decide what card you're going to throw in there, you're going to add an alcohol card for every sugar card you put in there. Then you're going to take all those cards, shuffle them up, and see what cards are removed. For when you usually make a liquor, you remove the head and the tail. One is poisonous, one doesn't taste very good. In this case, you'll remove the top card and bottom card, adding these back into your pantry. Then you're going to look at what remains and see which of the drinks you made. Now, if there is a tie, for example, like once again, the soju and whiskey, both of them are optional. You can choose which one you want to make. If, for example, you want to make the soju, this is one that actually will not take time to make. You can sell right away. While the whiskey is one that needs to ferment and spend some time in your warehouse. Let's say, for example, we decided to make the soju. We're going to put in the metal barrel requirement, put it aside, and then collect 1 label matching the drink we chose to make. This is why I say you should take turns, even though it says it can be concurrent, as there's only a limited number of these labels. If, for example, there were no more labels left, you can still make that alcohol. However, you won't be able to get one of the label bonuses later on when you sell it. Once each player has made their drink and are ready to move on, you'll then enter the sell phase. Here, you'll be taking turns selling the beverages that you have concocted. So, let's say we wanted to sell our soju we just made. We have to put it in a bottle. Each player does have a basic bottle and barrel to start with and always come back to them. All others will tend to be given away once you sell it. So once we've chosen your bottle, you will fan out your cards, gain money equal to the reward in the top, and gain victory points equal to the bottom left corner. Once you have done that, take any bottles you use, except for the starter bottle, and add them aside to your collection for endgame scoring. Basic cards return to where they go, and your ingredients will all be discarded. Now, when it comes back around to your turn, you may choose to sell another liquor if you have one. For example, we actually have one in our warehouse. As I stated earlier with whiskey, some beverages take some time to ferment. Now, you can choose to sell them, but the reason you may not is actually because after the sell phase, there is the aging phase. For every drink that you have in your warehouse, you're going to add one of these flavor cards. Some of these flavors are very nice, others not so much. You won't know what card is added until you've sold the drink. When you choose to sell the drink, you're going to take the card, fan it out as before, you'll see what flavors you have, and in addition to the money as well as victory points you would earn, you're going to earn additional victory points based on the number of flavor cards that you had in the pile. Otherwise, it'll be just like selling the items before, discarding any of the non-basic cards, and returning all the other cards to their piles. Either way, whether you chose to sell one that was in your warehouse or one that you just made, once you sell it, you're going to cover up one of these label bonuses if you have a label. All of them usually provide something for free or 2 victory points. The special one I want to point out is moving the signature ingredient to your pantry. The reason this is important is each player has a signature recipe that they can make once each game. This is worth a lot of points and will require a specific ingredient, in this case, corn, which everyone gets their own special one and it is worth more points. You can choose to use a normal corn that you can buy in the marketplace. However, like I said, that one's probably going to help a bit more and guarantee that you have corn available should you cover it up with a label. Once each player has finished selling off their concoctions, you then move to the end of round cleanup phase. First off, you're going to check if anyone has completed any spirit awards. These are the spirit awards. If anyone has completed any of the spirit awards, they will gain the points printed on the bottom. Then you're going to flip that one over, meaning that no other player can earn it. Then, if you didn't sell any drinks this round, you then have the option to hold a tasting. Basically, you can spend up to 4 points in order to get up to 4 money. This is a great way to earn some money if you put a drink in your warehouse and didn't have the chance to make any profit. Finally, move the first player token forward, then move the round marker. At the end of the 3rd round into the 4th, you're going to look at those secret goals I mentioned earlier, choose one to discard, keeping the other 2 as the ones you will score at the end of the game. Gameplay will continue until you've reached the end of the 7th round, and then you're going to do some final scoring. First, if there were, by any chance, any drinks left in your warehouse, you will be able to get some points out of them, but not as much if you sold them earlier on during the sell phase. Then, based on the bottles you've collected, you will earn points based on the same number of the regions they're from, as well as completing a set from each region. Then check for points on your distillery upgrades. Some of them may be a flat point cost, others may vary based on what you have. Then look at your private goals, gaining points from those. And then finally, any remaining points based on the money you have left over. Add up all your points, seeing who has the most. And of course, if you ever cross 50 or even 100 points, mark it there and see who has the best distillery at the table and maybe celebrate over a drink. One of the reasons I really enjoyed Distilled and its theme is I feel, I don't want to call it educational because it's not like trying to be like, here are real world facts and there's a test at the end, but rather similar to something like Wingspan, I feel like the mechanics and theme heavily reflect what actually happens in the real world. Obviously, the biggest example of this is in the distill phase. I absolutely loved how this works because actually when you make drinks, you do remove the beginning and end because it's not part what you want in the drink. And here they reflect that in removing the top and bottom card. This, I think, one is just very interesting and clever to know about. But in terms of a game mechanic is really cool as it's a push your luck, but you can throw in more cards. And in fact, it automatically throws in more alcohol for the more sugars you throw in to hedge your bets in case you really want to make sure there's a certain drink you want to make. And let's say you did throw in an ingredient, whether it's just a premium one you bought or even your personal one. When they get removed, they're returned back to your pantry. So you still have the chance to use them. They're not thrown out and then you feel bad because you just spent a lot of money on that really nice fruit. In fact, your personal ingredient has a special ability where it returns back to the drink so it can't be removed, making it a very strong ingredient if you want to make that signature recipe. Now, this real world reflection does permeate more throughout the game, but I really do feel that the distill phase in and of itself is sort of the crown jewel of not just showing this off, but the game in general. I really enjoy how you design the drinks here. And then after you deal with whatever luck occurs, whether you make the drink you want to make or something else, you then decide how you have to bottle it and mitigate it in order to make the most profit or points out of this. And in some games, you may be forced to make the minimum thing, which might be sometimes, in fact, quite a bit of times worthless. Here, on the other hand, moonshine and vodka are actually pretty decent. They give you some good money up front. So those first few rounds, even though you don't actually have a lot, you always feel like you're scraping by. Because you can make those two drinks, they're going to bring you money back so you can actually buy those stronger upgrades. And then you start feeling better, and then you can make the cooler drinks that will make you more victory points. But even if the worst case scenario happens, you're going to get some cash. And cash is always helpful. The other thing I really enjoyed about this goes back to what I said earlier with how you don't feel like you have a lot of money in those first few turns. I really feel like every time I played, I'm like, oh my God, I can only do the most basic things I can only get from the basic market. Yet somehow every time, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, well, I just made like 20 points and just got $15. Like, when the hell did this happen? I really feel like this speaks to the tight gameplay of always being able to have a really nice power curve when going through the game, that at one moment you feel like you can only do so little, and next moment you've got like this perfect whiskey aging in your warehouse while you're selling off another drink in order to be able to buy the ingredients for the next round. Overall, it just feels like it leaves you right at the cusp of always being able to do a little bit more, but not at the same time that you feel that you accidentally just lost a full turn, at least mechanically. That said, there are some feelings where I do feel like it's not actually a problem in the mechanics, but rather just the psychology when it comes to the players. The first one comes in with the aged drinks. Now, it does feel really good as you have your drink in the warehouse. It's slowly building up flavors, and you're just waiting like a ticking time bomb to sell and just get all these points and money. Or hopefully you don't get some of the bad flavors in there. But every time I played this, the first time anyone put a drink in the aging area and they couldn't sell anything else, they always didn't feel that great. And yes, you can do the tasting phase to spend some victory points for money, but that was one thing that they consistently complained about. It's not a mechanical issue. It doesn't ruin the game because it's like a broken mechanic or it's nerfed in some way. Rather, it's just the psychological aspect of having to, I guess, have some patience maybe when it comes to that drink, which you will be able to sell multiple later. The other issue I think comes down to the premium ingredients. Now, I don't have the math on this, and as far as I can tell, I think they're still priced fairly with the points and money they will give. But every time I had cash, I almost always wanted to buy an upgrade or like a bottle or a new barrel, the one of the premium items. I always felt like the premium ingredients were boring, to be honest. It wasn't like they were flashy or interesting. It wasn't like they comboed like, if you, for every grain sugar you have in here, this is worth more points or something, or money. It was just, yeah, they'll give you money and points. And I'm like, well, I can just get the basic ones for free. So I might as well just go for that. I feel that the premium ingredients really need something to help spice them up, even though that maybe from an actual like analyzing point, they are significantly better purchases. Like the money and victory points you get in exchange for buying them is advantageous, but they just don't feel that way. Overall, though, they still had a ton of fun playing this. Combine it with the modular of pieces as well as the distilled phase. There's a right amount of luck that keeps me always hoping and guessing, but it's not just a dice roll. I do feel like there are ways to mitigate it, be it stacking the deck in the distilled phase, getting some really cool, powerful upgrades, as well as some items, and then feeling rewarding getting a ton of points from either the Spirit Awards, from the bottle collection. You get points based on the different bottles you get at the end of the game, though my favorite will always be the carton. And as well as just getting points from your secret goals, which I really do appreciate, by the way, the fact that you choose which one you want to discard halfway through the game, at the very least, so you already know what your engine is supposed to be and what's coming up, rather than just hoping for that at the very beginning of the game. I do think that this is a great game, and with the tight gameplay, the fun mechanics in the distill phase, as well as the cool theme, even with the problems I notice, I do think this makes a fun mixture of a game. Crits and misses for Distilled. Crits. The Distilled phase is one of my favorite parts of this game. Not only do I like the fact that you are gathering ingredients, deciding how much to throw in there in order to stack the deck in your favor, but at the same time, it's got that little bit of luck that you're never quite sure that the ingredients you want in there are gonna stay. That being said, whatever does come out, you'll always have the option to make something, be it a high value scoring recipe or maybe one of the simpler but still lucrative moonshine and vodka. I also think that having the ingredients removed returned back to your pantry was an extremely smart move. It removes a lot of the negative feelings, especially if you removed a more premium ingredient that would have made people feel like they lost an entire round if it was just discarded. Gameplay will always feel tight and you'll never feel like you can do a lot of options. However, with all the different ways that you can score points as well as make money, you'll be surprised how much you'll be earning when it comes to the mid and late game. I feel like they did a lot of testing in order to make sure no matter what you do, you'll always be earning something. At the very least, that will always make sure that you feel like you are progressing in the game. I love how the game tries to reflect how this would work in the real world, be it when it comes to the distilled phase, as well as which drinks would need to spend some time aging in order to get that more desirable flavors. Throw in the fact of all the different ingredients you can use, the different kinds of upgrades that make sense, as well as all the different regional tags for the bottles, as well as the drinks. It really feels like that there was a lot of research done in this game to make it feel and play realistic just as much as having a fun game. Misses. In the marketplace, there are basically 4 different tracks. There's the basic market, premium items, premium ingredients, and premium upgrades. Now, whenever I had money and wanted to buy some of the more expensive stuff, I always went to the premium items and upgrades first. I always felt like the premium ingredients were a bit of a letdown. Yes, they might actually be more efficient when it comes to spending money and earning points, but I just found most of them to be very boring. You can only make 1 drink per round, which, to be honest, you probably are only going to gather enough ingredients for 1 drink, but that does mean anytime that you make a drink that you're not selling right away and storing in your warehouse, it means for that round you won't be selling anything unless you already had another drink in your warehouse to sell. This always caused bad feelings amongst the players I played with, who never felt like they actually were losing money or points for this. It was just didn't feel great whenever you weren't able to sell something when it came to the next phase. Usually when I think of a drinking game, the first things that come to mind are ones that are more party themed and usually involve you having to drink copious amounts of, well, whatever the cheapest liquor you currently have available. This is not one of those games, however. I still think it's going to be one that is a lot of fun for those who are maybe a bit more of aficionados when it comes to alcoholic beverages. I really enjoy the theme and how it does connect with a lot of parallels in real life. One of the actually small facts I learned from this game is that whiskey is spelled differently depending on what region you're in. It may or may not include the E, and they reflect that with the Tile 4 whiskey. The label actually flips to change the spelling, so whichever way you prefer, you can make sure your whiskey is spelled the right way. Overall, the mechanics I just think were a lot of fun, and while there are some sort of feel bad things where having to wait for your drink to mature, or if it's just the premium ingredients that never caught your eye, I still think you're overall going to have a lot of fun here. There are so many different ways for you to mess around with the game. There's different lists you can use. There's different bonuses and the spirit awards and personal goals that can come out, that each time you play, there's always going to be a fun new drink for you to brew. But you can let me know your thoughts on Distilled. If you've played this game, did you have a lot of fun with it? Is this a game you enjoy playing with others who are big fans when it comes to brewing? Maybe they have their own microbrewery of some sort. Or is maybe a game that you make sure no one else is drinking while playing to make sure everyone's on their A game? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Roll for Crit.